recording in progress. Good afternoon. Thank you for showing up. We're happy to be your #1 title vendor here in this office. Mel is the closer for Great Orange Title. This area, she's been in title for 4 years. She has a phenomenal team, including Jackie. Jackie is her coordinator. So they make a pretty good duo. There's no file that they can't handle. They are equipped with commercial, residential, and new construction. So there's no file that they cannot handle. So if you have any questions, feel free to call, text, or email them.
I don't think it goes up any higher. Sorry.
Take your heels off. Short like me. So today we're gonna hopefully provide some value to you and your business by hosting this training, and appreciate your guys' participation. Ask questions throughout. We want it to be interactive, and feel free to shout out any questions that you guys have.
You're hungry, there's snacks back to keep going.
Awesome. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you all for coming in. We really appreciate it.
All right, so we're gonna just go through some basics here this morning. I am Britt. I'm the founder and CEO of Great North Title. Here, she's already presented here. Mel is actually moving upstairs as of August 1st. So you get to see her face more often. We're super excited about that. Jackie will come to visit from time to time, but she's mostly in our Eagan office. But you can always still email her and call her anytime we're not able to get a hold of Mel. All right, so we're gonna go through a few of our basics here. And then I did receive that list that you guys went through on the whiteboard with Kami, with questions that you had like regarding titles. So we'll touch on each of those and kind of open it up for questions so we can clarify any kind of situations that you might have experienced or are currently experiencing. All right, so first off, we're going to start with the 2 types of properties that are in Minnesota. Anyone want to answer that question? The answers might be on the screen.
Abstract or
Perfect. Is there ever an opportunity where a property might be both?
sure.
Yes. Yes. There are times when a larger parcel is broken up and part of the parcel was abstract, part of it was Torrance, and then the piece that is cut in the middle would then be considered abstract and Torrance because of that original property line. So that can happen. In that case, then there's double recording costs. So you have to record, or we as the title company have to record the documents in both departments. You don't get charged double taxes. So MRT isn't paid twice. Safety tax is not paid twice, just the $46 per document gets charged twice. Now, abstract is when the property dates all the way back to an actual document that is updated with every single transaction, including refinances. So if ever your seller has an abstract property, ask them if they have an actual abstract. If they do, and they want to pass it along to the buyer, it's kind of a really cool piece of history, because if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to see when it was originally purchased from the United States. There are some interesting items that are added to it as well. They would include mental status of people, their marital status, their race, all of this. There are several inappropriate entries that I have seen. But it's crazy to see how times have changed over time. So if there is one, if the seller wants to hold on to it, if it's like a family property and they want to just manage it, they don't have to give that over to the buyer anymore. Abstracts are obsolete. You cannot update them anymore. They're just a really cool history to either pass on or hold on to. But the classification abstract just means that everything's recorded at the county with the county recorder. Torrance is also recorded at the county, but on a certificate. So that is handled by the examiner of titles at the county. So they're usually, well, actually, I have seen some of the actual certificate titles that gets passed on to the buyer, but not necessary. Everything is entered in through the certificate at the we already did touch on abstract and torrents, that there is a chance that both us. Any questions on property types? You guys have any? Here? About? No? Okay. As they come up, just reach out to Mel or Jackie. They'll be able to help walk you find the answer. If your seller doesn't know whether their property is abstract or torrents and you can't find it on the county site, you can always just call it and ask them. Who will tell you? Remote online notarization. I know that's one of the things that you guys had discussed. You had questions on when you had your team. Is anyone not familiar with remote online notarization? Has anyone had a closing?
Not like that.
Not like that yet? Okay, so what's super cool is that we are all of our closers at Great North Title are certified with the state of Minnesota to have electronic notarization. So what that means is that if your seller or your buyer is out of the states, out of the country, doesn't matter. They can still sign with your favorite closer, Mel, because she has that online notarization certification. So if you do have that situation, seller or buyer will be out of the state or out of the country, please let Mel, Jackie know right away, because we'll just have to make sure that it is approved through the buyer's lender. Most of the counties are accepting it now, so that shouldn't be a problem, but we want to verify that the lender is okay with that. So once that's been approved, then Mel and Jackie will make the proper channels. They'll get everything lined up for that. So basically, they'll just need to have a computer that has a camera, and then they're going to have to remember crazy things from their past that will show up on their credit report. So I think you guys typically hear them ahead of time and let them know, right? Like, if you co-sign for something, try to remember what that vehicle was, what the color of that vehicle was, or something like that. Any questions on Ron? Call it Ron. So, but now when you hear someone say Ron and it's not a person, so Mel can do Ron. All right, title insurance. What is title insurance? This helps home buyers and or mortgage lenders protect against losses resulting from unknown defects in the title to your property that existed before the closing of a real estate transaction. So there are two types of policies that we provide. There's a lender's policy and an owner's policy. Now, if there is no mortgage involved in the transaction, there is no lender's policy. If there is a mortgage involved in the transaction, a lender's policy is required. That is not optional. So you as a buyer are purchasing a lender's policy for the lender to protect them. So that will protect the lender against any kind of defects. So if they find out that at closing, Mel did a closing, the seller on that had one mortgage on the property, that lender had a breakdown, including a satisfaction mortgage or a lease fee of $46 included there, then we are expecting that lender to satisfy that mortgage at the county. A lot of times they don't, or they recorded an abstract instead of torrents or vice versa. So that lender's policy is going to protect the lender and the buyer for that. So you would just come back to us. We'll do the research. We'll find out why wasn't it recorded, and then we'll contact the lender and get it all moved up so that there is not a lien on the property anymore. Then we have the owner's
Is
policy.
that common?
Yes, it is
It is?
actually very common. Yeah. For the owner's policy, this one is optional. If you have a lender's policy, it's typically the difference is just like a couple $100 more. So it's a good investment to know that this is something that's protected the entire time property, unless you change how you're entitled dramatically. Like if you switch it to a different company that you're not a member of, or a trust that you are not a trustee of, then you're going to lose your owner's policy coverage. what the owner's policy does is it protects the buyer from losses arising from any unknown defects in the title that existed prior to the purchase, and then anything that comes up at closing that maybe was overlooked or missed. But again, it is optional to choose. Our owner's policies are all enhanced that we offer. So if you do a title quote comparison with any other title company, chances are our owner's policy might appear up to $100 more than others. The reason is we always quote enhanced policy. We did do a handout the last time, but I'll make sure to email each of you after this meeting today what our enhanced policy covers, because there's about 15 more things that it covers than the standard policy. Now, every buyer does have the option to drop it down to a standard policy and not have that additional coverage, but we always want to offer the most coverage, the best opportunity that we can for every buyer. So we're always going to offer the more expensive, more coverage, but we do have that option to drop it down. The enhanced will not be allowed for any investment properties or owner occupied properties. Yeah.
So I had, for the first time this year, someone who said, Brown said, no, we don't want an owner's policy. Wasn't it the Browns? I think that said, define that. And I haven't had it before. Yeah, they were buying a house. They're moving here from North Carolina. So what is the risk to them if they decline?
So if there are any title defects, they'll have to hire a real estate attorney to represent them. So if you know the costs of an attorney these days, typically $500 to $1,000 per hour is what you're going to pay for a real estate attorney to clean up for you. So most likely it was because it appeared to be a very expensive cost. That's probably why they. So the owner's policy is more expensive when there is no lender involved, because total coverage, and this can be a little bit confusing, but the total coverage for your owner's policy is based on your purchase price. So you never pay more than that. Now, if you have a lender involved, then we're going to cut out a portion of that owner's policy, and the lender's policy will cover, let's say it will be like 700 of that, and then the 300 left over for this $1,000 policy, the 300 left over would be the owner's policy. Now, if you take that mortgage out, now that owner's policy is $1,000 because you're not taking a split off to the lender. So if they look at that and say, oh, this is the $1,000 that we in our pocket, they may do that. So there are some cash buyers that are like, nope. We always make sure that they're well aware that if you're declining that, you are responsible for clearing up any kind of title issue. That owner's policy sticks with your property for the entire time you own it. So I personally would never decline it. It's reassurance like a homeowner's policy. So you hope you never have to use it, but if you do, you're glad that you have it, right? You're thankful you have it. But the thing that's different is it's property the entire time you own it. You have to right, or pay for a new premium. Cheers. All right, so moving on to homesteading. Who here owns a property? Okay. Is your property homesteaded? No, for sure. Do you know how to double check?
I noticed it wasn't when I got my tax thing.
Okay, yes,
Mail.
that is how you will know. So this is
So my
something that
estimated-
is good for you.
I did do it right after that, but.
Oh, you did do it?
Yeah, I did do it after I saw that, but I didn't, and then I think I've been asked, it's a long time ago, but. And it was on me. I mean, you have to do it as a homeowner, so I must have not done it and.
Yep, or if you filed a quitclaim deed or changed how you're entitled, it will go non-homestead. So remember that. If you know of any of your clients or any family members or friends that are changing how they're entitled, if they just recorded divorce decree and a quitclaim deed, or just a quitclaim deed to add somebody in title or switched it to a trust, make sure they know that they need to contact the county to bring homes to the property.
Can I ask one more question about the owner's policy? I'm sorry, if you have an owner's policy and maybe it was with a title company that's no longer around, do you still have that owner's policy?
Sure do.
Okay.
Yes, so that's another thing to tell your clients, and that's what we tell all of our customers at the closing table is, as soon as our documents are recorded, usually within 30 days of the closing, we're going to send them a link to that Qualia portal that's here. They want to download that as their title evidence, because if for some reason down the road in 30 years, Great North Title is not around, the underwriter will require that you have proof of that owner's policy, to file that claim. So if you do have the owner's policy, make sure that you have it printed or in a digital
It's
folder.
not in your closing docs?
No, it won't be in your closing docs. It's not available until the documents are of record.
Is that something you could get later, like within the first 30 days or whatever, or after the 30 days? Is that something you could obtain later? Like, could I go
Yes.
and obtain my owner's policy somehow?
Yes, so if you are missing your owner's policy from a prior closing, I would call that title company right away to request a copy. Yes. So for homesteading, like you mentioned, for the homesteading, like you had mentioned, that is the best place to look is you get your, post-tax statement every March. Always look up in the top right-hand corner, it will say homestead status, and it'll either say res for residential, homestead, or non-homestead. So if you ever see non-homestead, then you know you're not getting that homestead credit. So you can only homestead your property if it is a primary residence, secondary home or investment property, you will not be able to homestead that property. At the closing table, we do provide those, homesteading instructions. Most of the counties are online now. So you can just Google whatever your county is. So for example, mine was Dakota County. As soon as I closed on my property, I just Dakota County homestead, and then clicked apply online, filled everything out, done within 3 minutes. So it's super, super easy. There are a couple counties still that require paper applications, and that's Ramsey and Anoka. The other ones, I think all the other ones are online right now, right? Besides the outer counties. So do check in with that.
Okay, so another weird one. I have a client who's buying a property for his brother to live in. And that can be homestead because it's a family member.
Yes, so you can do relative homestead, yes, as long as it's a direct family member or relative. So when you Google Dakota County homestead or whatever the county is, if you scroll down, you'll be able to see an application for relative. So the relative will have to participate in that application, so just read through everything and make sure that everything is properly. If they need any help with that, they can always just call the county. So there's a number there that will help them kind of talk through any of those details. But yes, that's a great. Yeah. So, I think there's a lot of that where parents are purchasing a home for their children cash just so they don't have to be in the market. Well, they can relative to their child, right? Second home for them, but it's primary for the child. So for our departments, so I don't know that everybody knows our process for title. So we just kind of broke it down simply here just so you can kind of understand how our basic process works. Obviously, there's a lot of details in between, just like in your process as a real estate agent. But basically, once you send your order over, it goes to our order entry. We'll begin our abstracting and examining and order all of the searches for the property right away. After that, then it will go to the processor. And we'll review that title commitment that's been completed by our examiner that is on staff. And then our processor, such as Jackie, she'll work on clearing title, finalizing figures, and any other things. We didn't list them all on here as to not bore you and take the whole day up. Then it moves into closing, and then Mel then prepares that package and puts a little pretty bow on everything that Jackie has done and gets ready to present those documents to your buyer or seller at the closing table or over computer if it's an online experience. And then once she signs, notarizes and everything, we'll get funding for that transaction. Then she's going to disperse all of the fees. So every third-party fee that's included in there, she's going to cut checks for all payoffs and taxes, etc. She'll package out that closing package. Whatever the buyer or seller has signed, it will get uploaded into our system, which is secure. And then we'll send the package back to the lender. There is a lender involved. And then we will get our recording package. So all of the original recordable documents that have to go to the county for recording, she will get that ready for our recorder. who uploads everything because we now electronically record with most of the counties. And then once the recorder is notified that everything is of record, that is when your final policy is created. And then we will bundle that up, final policy, along with recorded documents. And then that will be sent through that Qualia portal that we were just talking about a little bit ago, to receive that owner's policy title evidence download or upload. Any questions on the process at all?
No, but you make it easy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing is if you work with a title company that has it all together, you don't really have to worry about this, but it's kind of nice to have a little overview so you know, okay, this is all.
That's why I don't really have any questions, because I don't have to ask questions.
Exactly. You're anticipating all the needs for you, right? Exceeding your expectation day after day. All right, let's go into well status. Let's see. Let's go through a scenario. So let's say you're at a listing appointment, and you want to ask them a question. You have a well, yes or no? If your seller says, I used to have one, is that yes or no? Yes. So if somebody says they used to have a well, they still have a well. It was just, or improperly sealed. There's that chance. So if they say, oh, I used to have one, or you do have one, then the answer is yes. So you want to check the status of that well. Why is this important? Because before 1990, there was no tracking for wells in Minnesota anyways. And so the Minnesota Department of Health got involved in 1990 and wanted to make sure that all of the water is safe drinking water. So even though there are some cities that have all city water now, there's a chance that there may have been a well before. And so that well would have to be properly sealed by a licensed Minnesota well contract. There happens where the owner thought, oh, well, just gonna pour cement down that well because we're not using it anymore. Well, that's going to become a problem and a liability for the buyer in the future if Minnesota Department of Health finds out about that. So in that case, then the buyer, now owner, would be responsible for getting that cement dug up and then having it tested and then properly. So that's why it is really important to go through all of those details about the well on the purchase agreement. A lot of our sellers, when we go through the documents, and like, wow, you guys are really, really crazy about asking well questions. Read the documents at closing, we have them signed, confirming that there is no well. You would be surprised at how many sellers ended the well at closing, and they said there wasn't a well on the purchase agreement. So if there is a well, what we will do as a title company is we're going to look on the Minnesota Department of Health website to see if a well certificate has been recorded. If it has and the status hasn't changed, we're good to go. We don't have to do anything. We're just going to check on the deed. The status of the well has not changed the last. Now, if the status has changed, the buyer will be charged at closing a $50 well certificate fee. And then we're going to help them fill out that document and then we'll record that online so that it is electronically recorded. Our deed will then state that a well certificate accompanies this deed, and here's the well certificate number. So we'll include that in the actual recorded document. If there is no well, just check that there's no well, and that's easiest of all deeds. Right.
You guys did have one of your agents out of this office who they listed a property and it was found that there was a well. And their seller, who was representing a family member through a power of attorney, I believe, was then obligated to hire a licensed well company to dig up the cement stuff that was on top of the well and properly seal the well. Because if it's not properly sealed, then the buyer is responsible for keeping the well
status up to date with the Department of Health and paying a fee for that well that is not in use. So it does happen, and it's not fun, but it is something that does occur, and, you know, it's for the protection of the buyer. You want to make sure that that well is properly taken care of if it's intended to be decommissioned.
How much does that cost?
through title?
$2,200.
Can you tell when you're doing the title work if there was a well on the property and the person didn't know? Or is that something who?
A few different ways that we can tell is by looking at the previously recorded deeds to see if there was ever a well that was reflected. And then we can also go to the Department of Health website where we would file the certificate and see if there were any other certificates that were filed for prior wells.
But we won't always have the answer. We don't always have access to figuring that out.
Correct.
So we are depending on what the seller tells.
Interesting.
But it's better to figure out this before the closing table,
Sure.
especially come winter time, right? Because it's
Got
not, it won't be something that you can fix quickly.
So what happens in the winter time? You just, is it like a new construction where the irrigation system can't get put in during the winter and you close and then like do that process or?
Yeah, it'll depend. So we would have to call based on the situation and see if they will allow us to close in escrow. And then you guys would get, 3 different bids on that, choose the best one that buyer and seller agree with. And then we would escrow 1.5 times as long as that's approved by all parties, including Minnesota Department of Health. So yeah, any situation like that, run it by Jackie and Mel. We'll do all the searching for you and get you an answer.
So if an owner is selling a house, they didn't know there was a well, now they've got this unfun surprise. Is this something that owner's insurance covers, or that's just title defect?
Well, if it isn't disclosed, then no. If it was an oversight on our part, then yes, there's a chance. Yeah, it'll depend on all of the variables. But if the seller discloses nothing, then it's all the seller's responsibility, right? We have to go back to the seller. Like, why didn't you disclose this? Hopefully they'll.
But if they didn't know about it, like it wasn't found before.
Yeah, I mean, that does happen sometimes, and usually then the owner at that time will just accept responsibility and get it taken care of. They can always go after the former seller later if they want to, but sometimes it's not even worth that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our closing location. So our main office is in Eagan. We also have an office in Roseville. We do have an office in Minnetonka downstairs, but that will be ending, our lease will be ending at the end of this month. And then Mel, as I mentioned earlier, will be moving upstairs here. We also have Edina and Maple Grove. And then, as you see here, we have homes, offices, coffee shops. So really we can close anywhere. So if you have a situation where the seller is elderly and they can't leave their home, or they're in a secure living facility, one of our closers will go themselves. We do not send mobile closers. So you always know that you're still getting the best representation, no matter where they're closing. If it's, 3 hours away, we will try our best. But we may need to get a mobile closer involved if they don't want to do the registered online notary. But we'll discuss those situations with you as those come. But we've closed at hospitals right after childbirth. We've closed in prisons. I mean, there's no end to where we can go to close. Moving on to Qualia Connect. So I think most of you have worked with Great North Title. If you haven't, then you're not familiar with Qualia, but Qualia Connect is the system that we use to securely communicate with all parties in the transaction. So as we know with AI and email phishing and hacking, that's just becoming so prevalent now that we're trying to do everything that we can to combat that. And so we have invested in this system, which is top of the line right now for title companies, to protect that. So mostly what's happening is when a buyer or a seller is not using an email address that is like linked up with a company that has the IT protection, is they're usually getting hacked or phished. And so they'll link onto that. The scammers will link onto that and wait for a keyword like wire, proceed, sale, any kind of keyword like that that would make them think, okay, great, I'm involved and start watching these emails. And then we can intercept and create new wire instructions, make it look like it's coming from their attorney or their lender or their title company. So we have seen this happen quite a bit. So we do use this portal for, that's one of the many reasons we use it. Now, if you have, if you want to download the app on your phone, you can just look for Qualia Connect in your app store. That way you'll have access to all of your files on the fly. So it's pretty cool. Any file that you close with us, you'll have access to for 7 years through that portal. You'll be able to pull up all the ultimate feeds from every closing that you've had in the past. One important thing to know is that some people don't like all those notifications. If you don't want to be notified about every single step along the way, go into your settings, notifications, turn them off, or you can select what you would like to receive notifications on. If you do turn them off altogether, you still can log in and check to see the status. You just won't get all of the notifications along the way. All of our emailing is secure through there. So we will send you wire instructions through there if that is the way that they would like to send their funds for closing. But it does provide the automated updates and file tracking. Has anyone had experience with Qualia to share? Has it been good for you? Like once you set it up, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's easy, it's good. You can go in and see like notes or if you guys have said anything. And if you want to turn off the notifications, you can. So it's,
You turn yours off?
no, I think I modified them.
Did you modify? Okay. That was pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go through and just open it up for any questions that you guys may have. So these are the items that you guys had listed on the board with Amy. So first off, we'll go through title defects. So title defects is when your title insurance is replaced. So let's say you send us an order, we see that there's an old mortgage like we were talking about from a prior owner. Well, now that's what your title company will take care of for you. So we're going to contact the title company that closed the last transaction and see if we can get what's called a letter of indemnity to clear that up. So then they send us a letter promising that they're going to take care of this and get it satisfied. And then they're expecting responsibility for that. They're going to have to do the research and then pay the $46 to be satisfied. Now, if they decline our request, then we're going to have to do that work ourselves, which we're happy to do, and we do not charge by the hour, luckily. And then once we do get that original satisfaction from the lender, we'll have to record that at closing, but because it was declined by the prior policy, that $46 will just get added to seller's fees at closing so that we can get that cleared up. There are several other kinds of title defects that could come up. So I don't know if anyone has any examples that they want to throw at us, or as they come up, we can always.
So a defect is just, it didn't get recorded correctly.
Yep, or improperly, yep. Any kind of title issue. Maybe they were put into title with it spelled wrong. That happens. Legal description error. All right, so then we're gonna move on to escrow. So escrow can mean many things. There's like an escrow account, which is also an account. So if you are gonna pay your taxes and insurance and have that handled through the lender, that would be called an escrow account. But escrow here, we're going to talk about is escrowing for an item that needs to be completed after closing. So if you do need to escrow for something, please contact Mel, Jackie to confirm before you do your amendment, just to confirm that we've covered all the details and to make sure that it's going to be acceptable for the lender and all parties. Once it is approved, what we'll do is we'll take, if you're doing a bid for work that's gonna be done, typically wanna get 2 or 3 different bids. And then make sure that buyer and seller both agree on the one that you're choosing. And then that's the quote that you wanna provide us with. We will then escrow 1.5 times that amount at closing. And then once the work is completed, we will make sure that it's up to the buyers, sellers, and lender, if there is a lender involved, their satisfaction. Once we have email confirmation from all parties, then we'll be able to release the escrow. So whatever that final bill came in at, we're gonna pay that bill. We're going to have them sign a lien release so that they cannot file a mechanics lien against the property. And then we will release the rest of it to whoever's funds are holding back. So if it was the seller's funds, if it usually is, we'll release it back to the seller. Sometimes they have the buyer funds held back. So, any questions on escrows at all? That for taxes, assessments, sometimes there's a mortgage, like really old mortgage that we have to clear up. If that comes around, we will go to our underwriter and ask, if they will allow us to close based on all of the information that we give. Sometimes they will approve that and we can close holding back the full escrow amount for the mortgage. Has everyone experienced escrow holdback? Any of their transactions? Not yet? So you might see them as we get closer to winter because Minnesota is so seasonal for work to be completed. So as we get closer to the cold, you might see more opportunity for holding back escrow. So as will come up again, just check with Jackie and they'll help you with that. Now
I
liens,
can't really think of an example off the top of my head, but would a real estate brokerage ever hold funds in an escrow?
I haven't seen that happen. Typically it's the lender or the, most likely it'll be the now for liens, a lot of people don't realize that a mortgage is actually a lien. So there are all different kinds of liens that can be filed. So, at the county recorder, anything to be paid where a property is sold or refinanced will be filed as a lien on the property. So if you take out a mortgage, it will be recorded as a lien. A second mortgage, it will be recorded as a second position lien. Third mortgage, because we're seeing 3 mortgages nowadays for the first gen people, all 3 mortgages will be liens on the property in the proper order, first, second, third lien position. Property taxes, if those become delinquent after a certain point, those will become a lien. You cannot record documents if your taxes are delinquent, so those will have to be given a state or any document recorded at the recorder's office. Assessments, if those are not paid, those get certified to taxes, and then if taxes are delinquent, that can become a lien. Any kind of city violations or fines, those can become assessed, and then eventually liens the property. Delinquent water, delinquent garbage, depending on the city, also put liens on your property. And then marital liens, if you have a seller that's getting divorced, and the divorce decree is court ordered that there's a marital lien for the person that did not receive the actual property, that they are to receive, let's say, $50,000. As soon as you record that certified divorce decree, or SREDJ is what the county wants to see now, is a summary of real estate disposition judgment. It will automatically place a lien on that property for the $50,000. So then when that seller goes to sell or refinance, the title company and the lender is going to call that out and say, you have to make sure that 50,000 of the proceeds go to this ex partner. Any questions on liens at all?
And nothing can be sold, it cannot be sold if there's a lien on it. That lien has to be taken care of.
Right. Yep, it would have to be handled at closing. So if it's already been paid or they're gonna pay it ahead of time, we'll need proof of that. Otherwise, we'll pay it at closing.
And that's like what's a judgment?
Judgment. So if you had, let's say, a bill from a creditor and you never paid it, and then they file that as a lien in the county against you in the county that you live in, that will pull up on our search. We're gonna say, did you pay this judgment? If you didn't, then we're gonna have to have you help us get.
The judgment's kind of the same thing as a lien. Got
Yes,
it.
yes, so a judgment would become a lien that we would have to pay at closing. And solar panel. Yes.
So any solar panels or HVAC or, water softeners. So if those are
If
financed,
you own a home and you owe someone money, they're gonna eventually get it from the sale of your home. If they put a lien.
Put a lien on it. That's a good question too, on mechanics. So if.
Oh, that's like a contractor, right? A contractor?
Slap a $3,000 lien on there. We've seen some contractors slap it on there just because they're mad at. Pay that out before closing. How are you gonna get this cleared up?
What about solar panels?
yeah, so if you, financed your solar panels don't have their own title, so they file a UCC, which is a lien for an item that is inside the real estate, but not have its own title. So then we have to pay those off.
Oh, like if you're making bump payments on.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if there's still money owed on those.
Correct, yeah, yeah.
And a swing set. Like a swing set could be like that too.
Mhm.
Big fancy.
Those things. with
Those
the-
those rainbow.
The rainbow,
Yeah.
those system things, they are.
So, okay.
Yes, I just did a pre-sign for a seller, on Monday. And when I went to meet her at her senior living facility, she was like, oh, yeah, I have a new HVAC or new water heater that was put in. She was like, I still owe on that. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is good to know. So we're closing or signing that should have taken an hour and a half because we had a call center to get her together. And then get passed through all the channels. After 40 minutes later, then we finally got the email. We were able to add that to the settlement statement and reduce her proceeds. That check to she was relieved to have that all taken care of there.
Just when something like that happens, the reactions you see, is it often relief or is it like kind of like, gosh dang it? Probably mixed.
Yeah, depends on the person. I mean, the situation, she was just glad to have it taken care of.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure.
She had some delinquent dues and she just wanted to be done with the home and stress free. That way. But yeah, some people are upset and they're like, no, I don't have to pay that. No way, I'm not paying that. Well, we're gonna have to, if you're gonna sell this property, have to ensure that it. All right, so we're gonna move on to encroachment, shared driveway. So an encroachment, would be like an overlap of a property lines. So, you have a driveway encroachment, let's say, a driveway for your neighbor goes through a portion of the property. The way to handle that is to ensure that you have an agreement between both owners of the property. Properties next to each other, and that easement that was drafted actually carries through every sale transaction moving forward and not just the current owners. So if you do have any kind of encroachment or property line issues that you're wondering about, that could include fence boundary lines, building encroachment, there's like a shed over a utility line or something like that. Bring that to our attention, check the plat drawing, and we can also check the records to see if there is recorded already that's handling that. So I'll give you an example for my property that I mentioned earlier in Tacoma County. I'm on a wetland, and so when I got the title work back and the plat drawing back, I noticed that a large portion of my property cannot be built on. I can put a shed on pretty much any area of my land, which that's something that I want to know as a buyer before I close, and wasn't disclosed to me by the seller. So
Was
when I
not?
looked at it, it was not.
Okay.
No, so then I called the city and asked them for a GSI map. Or GSI, I'll have to double check what that is called. And they were more than willing to send me all of the aerial pictures that shows all of the utility lines around there. So there's a wetland protection line. There's also a utility line that goes all the way around my property. So I can put something that's temporary on that utility line, but I'm accepting responsibility for removing that and any cost. If the city has to get in there and repair any of the utility lines there. So, when those things come up, we try to bring it to the buyer's attention, but it shouldn't be disclosed always by the seller, no matter what it is. So if your seller knows of anything, like a shed, we see that quite a bit, a movable shed, well, just know that's fine, it's there, the buyer will just have to accept responsibility to move that over if any of that cost gets passed along, same with a fence. If that's on that will be a bigger issue, so. Disclose everything, discuss everything, and have us help you before. Trust and power of attorneys, I'm not sure what the question was beyond this, but, anyone that was at the last class we put on, we provided a sheet, it was like a authority sheet, you remember that one? If you want access to that, I can send that out, today after class to everyone that's here. But it is just a list of any way that it's property other than being an individual, and what you as a real estate agent ask for to prove that they do have signing authority, or whether it's power of attorney, trust, company, estate, etc. And again, every situation is so different, so reach out to your trusted title to help you with situations across them. But you do want to make sure you have that authority, and you want to make sure you draft that time. So pull that out, save it as a screenshot or as your favorite, your phone, like as a picture. That's what a lot of my agents do, so that they have it when they're at a listing and they're like, oh, you own this as a trust. Okay, perfect. I just need your certificate of trust. Find that. And of course, wow. And then they know to draft it as the name of the trust. And the signer is the trustee of the trust. So we will give you that little cheat sheet, which will be helpful across any of the situations when your seller or buyer is not purchasing or selling. Does anyone have any specific questions about trust or attorneys? It might have been something else.
I don't know if this is with that, but is there a way you can buy a home and not put it in your name? Not show your name on the title or whatever, or on tax records or somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
As a trust or,
Like the address. 123 Main Street Trust.
a trust, or a company.
And there is some like secret item program. Remember, Mel, I had that one that need a safe at home, yeah.
So if your buyer or seller is not guilty, they have documentation to prove that, they can go through the program, and we have done several of those. So if you have a seller or buyer that's participating in that program, let us know. These are the 3 ways to not show your individual. All right, so we're moving on to remote closings. We touched on that earlier. Those are the RON closings that Mel can do. So whether your buyer or seller is out of the country or out of the state, subject to lender approval, you know that. Okay. Here is Team Mel once again. The nice thing about working with Great North Title is we like to simplify everything. So as Mel's team grows, we'll not have to figure out who to contact. You can just email teammel@greatnorthtitle.com, and one of the team members will get back to you right away or pass it along to the person. So Mel, here is your closer that's moving upstairs. Jackie out of Egan. Kelly does work remotely. She's kind of the team coordinator, helps with scheduling and some of the behind the scenes things. I can always help with title questions if Mel and Jackie aren't available. So if you have something pressing, you can always reach out to me too. And then Kayla is available to help out with any kind of engagement or sponsorship programs that you have. So you can always reach out to her or reach out to Mel.
Super
easy. Contact us.
You know, I always thought just like title is a world unto itself, just let the title handle it. But I can see that deeper questions here, especially on the listing side, can help as things pop up. So some trouble things.
It's nice to have a little of that knowledge in your back pocket. So you're like, oh yeah, I remember discussing that.
And when you're at listing appointments, if something comes up and you're like, I don't know how I should handle that, call us. I've had agents who are like, yep, I'm here with so-and-so and we're talking about this. How are we gonna address this together? And we'll just answer them right then and there. So just try to make it easy.
My phone's almost always with me. I do try to watch my kids' activities if they're in an activity, but I'll get back to you as it's up.
That's good.
Another one we should quick talk about is assessments. So, with the new PA that's rolling out, the buyer does any, with payable in the current year. So, want to make sure at the listing appointments that your seller is disclosing any kind of assessment, absolutely every assessment, even if something, if they've been notified by the city that something is coming up, maybe in the next 6 months or so, that won't be due in payable, but the buyer has to acknowledge that they're aware because they will be assuming that assessment. And typically those assessments are large assessments that will be assessed over like 20 years, probably like or something like that. One thing that you can do is always just Google the city and then assessments. Most of the cities in the Twin Cities here now have access to the public for pulling an assessment search. So if your seller doesn't know, you can always double check that too. But I would always detail all of the assessments on an we're going to have a lot of addendum because we're going to have a lot of those questionable moments with the new PA after that rolls out on August. So just document everything, disclose everything, and then just know that anything that's not currently payable and then for your buyers escrowing from the seller 1.5 times that until it's due and payable, unless you agree otherwise, like in a counter offer, you can get the seller to do that with escrow 1.5 times if the buyers. Any last minute questions for us at all?
That's great.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from that.
I know.
Awesome. What kind of things would you like us to send you out afterwards? Should we do the contact sheet, cheat sheet for signing?
Yep. Can you send out your PowerPoint?
Oh, yes, yep. Should I send it to you, the link?
Yeah.
Or should I just get a list of the?
I can send you other emails.
Is anyone online today?
Just Jesse. Jesse.
Okay, so I'll get Jesse.
Perfect. Yep, I can send you everyone.
Perfect, okay. So yeah, we'll send out this PowerPoint. I'll send you the cheat sheet. And then Mel's team contact sheet. I thought there was another thing here that I wanted to. Oh, that's what it was. I will also send you our owner's policy coverage comparison. I'll include all of that for you.
I put her through the ringer with these remote closings. I've learned so much.
She loves remote closing.
Have to have a Minnesota title company to close.
Even if they live on state?
Yeah. So my Nebraska guy who's buying with Nebraska in Nebraska, I mean, he's buying here, but using a Nebraska bank has to have a Minnesota title company or Minnesota license.
Right. Yeah.
See, all these things you learn when you are in the middle of goofy transactions. Poor Mel, is my educator.
She loves it. But we are licensed in Minnesota and
Even this
Wisconsin.
morning I had issues. I'll be so glad when it's all done.
I talked to him yesterday.
Oh, good.
Okay.